When the name Joaquin El Chapo Guzman is mentioned, it carries far more than the notoriety of a criminal. It symbolizes an era marked by violence, power, and audacity in the world of drug trafficking. Today, the man who once commanded an international empire lives confined in the ADX Florence Penitentiary, known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. But how did he end up there? And even more intriguingly, how does he cope with the prospect of spending the rest of his life in a concrete cell, isolated from everyone and everything? This is the story of a man whose narrative blends lust, brutal crimes, and escapes that defied the authorities of 3 countries. El Chapo was born in Badiraguato, a remote mountainous region in the Mexican state of Sinaloa. Raised in extreme poverty under the violence of an abusive father who was also involved in drug cultivation, Guzman was forced out of his home as a teenager. By the age of 15, he was growing his own marijuana crops, marking the beginning of his journey into the criminal underworld. It was during this time that he earned the nickname El Chapo, a reference to his height of 5 feet 6 inches, 1 meter and 67 centimeters, ironically juxtaposed with his boundless ambition. In the 1980s, he worked for Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, known as El Padrino, the then leader of the Guadalajara cartel. Even as a young man, Guzman demonstrated remarkable talent for logistics and organization, coordinating drug shipments between Colombia and Mexico. When Gallardo was arrested in 1989, Guzman wasted no time and formed the Sinaloa cartel, rapidly transforming it into one of the largest criminal organizations in the world. His methods were as innovative as they were ruthless. He hid cocaine in chili pepper cans and fire extinguishers, exploiting routes that spanned continents. His empire operated in more than 50 countries, supplying markets in the Americas, Europe, Asia, and Africa. However, El Chapo's meteoric rise also attracted dangerous enemies. As his cartel expanded, Guzman amassed unimaginable wealth. He surrounded himself with mansions, luxury cars, and even private zoos. His family enjoyed a similar lifestyle. His children attended exclusive schools, and family events were marked by opulence. However, maintaining such power required eliminating threats. His rivalry with the Tijuana cartel resulted in one of the bloodiest episodes in the history of drug trafficking. On May 24, 1993, in the parking lot of the Miguel Hidalgo Airport in Guadalajara, an assassination attempt against Guzman ended in tragedy. Cardinal Juan Jesus Posadas Ocampo was mistakenly killed, an event that garnered international attention. Fleeing to Guatemala under a false identity, Guzman was captured and extradited back to Mexico. This would be just the first of many arrests and escapes that defined his story. El Chapo is not only notorious for his cruelty or wealth, he is also legendary for his spectacular escapes. The first occurred in 2001 when he escaped from the Puente Grande prison hidden in a laundry cart. With the help of bribed guards, he bypassed multiple layers of security to regain his freedom. This escape dealt a devastating blow to Mexico's prison system and served as a stark reminder of his capacity for corruption. However, his most iconic escape took place in 2015 when he fled the Altiplano prison through a tunnel dug beneath his cell. This tunnel, over 1 mile, 1.5 kilometers long, was equipped with ventilation, lighting, and even a motorcycle adapted for rails. The audacity of this escape shocked the world and once again exposed the vulnerabilities of Mexican authorities. After his recapture in 2016, Guzman was finally extradited to the United States in 2017. In 2019, he was sentenced to life imprisonment plus 30 additional years and sent to ADX Florence in Colorado. This penitentiary, considered the most secure in the world, is reserved for inmates deemed impossible to contain elsewhere. At ADX Florence, Guzman spends 23 hours a day in a concrete cell measuring 7 by 10 feet, 2 by 3 meters. The bed, table, and stool are also fixed in concrete. A small window allows only a view of the sky, ensuring he has no sense of his location within the complex. During his single hour of recreation, he has access to a space resembling an empty swimming pool where he can take a few steps. Security measures include motion sensors, cameras, remotely controlled steel doors, and pressure-sensitive fences. The extreme isolation has led many inmates to develop severe psychological issues, including depression and hallucinations. Critics argue that the conditions at ADX Florence are inhumane, while others see them as justified for prisoners like Guzman. Attempts to capture Guzman's son, Ovidio Guzman, have become high-profile events. On October 17, 2019, during Ovidio's first arrest in Culiacan, the ensuing violence forced the Mexican government to back down. This day, known as the Culiacanazo, exposed the brute strength and military organization of the Sinaloa cartel. Streets were blocked, vehicles burned, and residents found themselves trapped in an urban war zone. To save innocent lives, the government decided to release Ovidio. 3 years later, on January 5, 2023, Ovidio was recaptured in a massive military operation involving more than 3,500 soldiers. This time, the Mexican government did not yield to threats. He was sent to the Altiplano prison, the same facility his father escaped from in 2015. This arrest was seen as a significant blow to the Chapitos, but also raised speculation about how the cartel would respond. Despite Ovidio and other family members facing justice, the Sinaloa cartel remains resilient. The infrastructure built by El Chapo enables the cartel to continue operating as a multinational organization. But the shadow of Joaquin Guzman still looms over every move. The Sinaloa cartel is not merely a criminal group, but a highly sophisticated and decentralized network that has adapted to constant market changes and government crackdowns. Despite the physical absence of Joaquin Guzman, the Guzman family has maintained an organizational structure that allows global operations to continue. The leadership of the Chapitos, composed of his sons, faces both internal and external challenges, including rivalries with other cartel leaders. Among the Chapitos, Ivan Archivaldo Guzman and Jesus Alfredo Guzman play crucial roles. Both combine brutality with modernization in their leadership styles. While Ivan is known for his ruthless approach, Alfredo uses social media to flaunt the luxurious lifestyle the cartel can still offer, a tactic that also attracts young recruits. Despite internal power struggles, the Sinaloa cartel remains one of the most profitable criminal organizations in the world. Its primary source of revenue is fentanyl trafficking, a synthetic drug that has devastated communities in the United States. The cartel has adapted its distribution tactics, utilizing cryptocurrencies and dark web marketplaces to expand its influence. El Chapo's story is a blend of criminal grandeur and unrelenting brutality. He built one of the largest drug empires in history, but his reign was marked by human tragedy. Thousands of lives were lost in conflicts related to the cartel, and its operations contributed to a global drug crisis that devastated families and communities. El Chapo's imprisonment in ADX Florence was not just a blow to the man himself, but also a symbol of the price of absolute power. His letters to the court are the only remnants of a man who, despite everything, still tries to exert some control over his destiny. In one such letter, he requested permission to see his wife and daughters, citing the devastating impact of isolation on his mental health. These requests, however, are often denied, reinforcing the perception that he is not just a prisoner, but an example of exemplary punishment. Meanwhile, human rights organizations question the inhumane conditions of ADX Florence, claiming that extreme confinement amounts to psychological torture, something that even criminals like Guzman should not endure. Others, however, argue that such harsh conditions are a fair reflection of his crimes. El Chapo has transcended his own existence. He has become a myth, a legend that inspires everything from popular songs to television series and movies. This cultural impact reflects a global fascination with the world of crime, but also obscures the real consequences of his actions. The Sinaloa cartel did not merely exploit corrupt systems, but deepened them, spreading violence and suffering throughout the region. Guzman's children now bear the weight of continuing a legacy that brought both immense wealth and destruction. Authorities, on the other hand, face the challenge of dismantling a cartel that constantly reinvents itself. Even with arrests and seizures, the flow of drugs and money seems endless, fueled by global markets that never stop consuming. The great question that remains is whether El Chapo will accept his fate or still has moves left to make. History has shown that he is a man capable of impossible feats. His ability to escape from the most secure situations and plan surprising moves has placed him in the realm of a living legend, but at ADX Florence, even legends face the limits of possibility. Nonetheless, the impact of El Chapo transcends his physical presence. He is not just a man, he is a myth, a legacy, and a warning. His story serves as a reminder of the human and social cost of drug trafficking and the deep wounds it leaves behind. Although confined, the world he helped shape continues to struggle to recover. What does the future hold for Joaquin Guzman and his family? This is a question only time will answer, but for many, the impact of his life and actions has already ensured that his name will be remembered not just as the man who defied all odds, but also as a clear example of the consequences of unchecked ambition and relentless violence. The legacy of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman continues to unfold in the hands of his children, even as the dynamics of drug trafficking evolve rapidly, presenting new challenges for cartels and authorities alike. Meanwhile, El Chapo's imprisonment in ADX Florence represents a unique experiment in punishment, whose psychological impact remains a constant topic of debate among experts. Though confined by concrete walls and constant surveillance, he still manages to unsettle entire nations. His influence extends through complex networks of power that, even in his physical absence, continue to operate like a well-oiled machine. The lingering question is whether the world can truly eradicate drug trafficking, or if we are merely fighting a hydra with multiple heads, where the fall of one leader simply makes way for another. Guzman's imprisonment was a milestone, but the fight against drug trafficking is an endless battle that requires deeper solutions than mere arrests and trials. The years ahead will determine not only the future of the Sinaloa cartel, but also the narrative of El Chapo as a historical figure. Will he be remembered as a shrewd leader who overcame unimaginable barriers, or as a criminal who destroyed countless lives? Perhaps he will be both, depending on who tells the story. For the families of victims, he will always be the face of tragedy. For others, an anti-hero representing the extremes of human capability. Whatever the answer, the legend of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman will endure, whether in the dark halls of ADX Florence or in the popular songs celebrating his audacity. He is the product of a system that allows figures like him to rise, and as long as these conditions persist, new El Chapos will always be lurking, ready to claim the throne of organized crime. The story of El Chapo, though fascinating, is a grim reminder of what happens when entire systems are corroded by corruption and greed. For those seeking to understand the extent of drug trafficking's impact, his legacy serves as a cautionary map. The wounds left by the Sinaloa cartel may never fully heal, but understanding the history behind the man helps clarify what must be done to prevent others from following the same path. In the end, El Chapo's end may simply mark the beginning of a new phase in the battle against drug trafficking. It is up to the world to decide how to face the next chapters of this never-ending story.